I'm gonna have to think about that.
I have my coffee. No worries.
I feel like
Today we are going to be talking about sustainable, responsible travel with two experts who actually kind of introduced me to these topics because I'm still learning. So Sarah and Sivan, we're going to be doing this ping pong Q&A. It's going to be one question and just two perspectives to answer from all the benefits of community-led travel. What's one you would personally put at the top and why?
Um, yeah, I'd love that question. But I would say that it's probably for me, I would say genuine connection. And I think the difference is observing a place versus actually being part of that place. So usually when you go on a community-led tour, you're not just having the curated experience, that has been polished to the max. You're more so in the reality of what the community is facing on a day-to-day basis. And for me, I believe that's where the richness is in that lived reality
Mm.
versus something that has been specifically curated for the traveler. And of course, the benefit is twofold as well, because for the community, it's that they get to have that tourism dollars stay within the community as opposed to going somewhere else through middlemen. So it's definitely a twofold benefit. But I think that most people can feel the difference between an experience that is performative versus an experience that's actually real and realistic and authentic, if we want to use that word. So I would say
Yeah,
connection is a huge one as far as benefits go.
nice. And Sivan?
My answer is actually very similar to Sarah's, which I had a feeling that it would be the case. But basically, for me, it's not just that the money stays within the local community, but it's that the community themselves can decide and choose what they want to show as part of their culture or the tradition, rather than trying to make it meet the visitors' expectation. So that visitors come in expecting to see a certain thing, I don't know, because they've seen it online or because it looks pretty and good for photos. So I think it's really important that they lead that themselves, because otherwise it goes into commodification, or being performative culture, as Sarah was saying.
Yeah, true. Okay, and so you both have had like very interesting community-led experiences. I remember this. What's a small like because you've been living with people from these communities. What's a small daily habit that you saw from these locals that either you learned from or just stayed with you? Like, okay, maybe I should shift this, or I should be doing this at home too or in my daily life.
For me, it wasn't like a specific moment. It was more so just seeing how people approach the everyday life. Because I believe I had shared a little bit about the experience which I had, which was being in a small fishing village for about 8 days in South Korea. And I saw the difference with how people think compared to the West. In the West, we have this perspective of how can we get more? And I don't want to generalize here, but it's a typical thing. We think about how can we get more relationships, the more growth, more output, more speed. It's all about more, as opposed to what I experienced there, which is how can we get better? So better quality of
Yeah,
life, better relationships, better connection to nature as well. And all of those things just help me see that, oh, it's more about just focusing on quality as opposed to quantity. And we were doing things like harvesting potatoes or hand plucking lavender to make dog spray, or just like basically focusing on how we could balance the things around us. So it was more about intention as opposed to just speed. So I believe that making room or making time for quality is something that was super important when it came to the way that they live their life there. And all of us can feel it in some way because you step into a process like this or you step into a life like this. And
Yeah.
you're like, why don't I apply this to my daily life every day? And I feel that community-led travel just gives us more opportunity to experience more of that transformation that people look for from travel than most other types of travel, at least in my experience.
Nice. Sivan?
Yeah, so this one wasn't really easy for me to answer, but I was thinking, and especially here in Malawi, for example, I realized just
Yeah.
how sustainably people live, even if it's like for necessity reasons. But for example, the way that most people here grow their own vegetables, grow their own herbs, grow their own fruit. They have to like hand wash their clothes rather than using a washing machine. There's like so many things that they do that are like really sustainable. Like for example, if you go to the market here, which I didn't see so much in Europe, but here, like why they do give out plastic bags and things. Everything is sold as like a single unit, and then everything that they sell is actually grown in Malawi rather than grown outside of Malawi. So I
Yeah.
really enjoyed seeing like just how sustainable life here is, even if it is for necessity. I think it just shows that it can be quite a simple thing to do. And I think that maybe sometimes in places like in Europe or in Western countries, we tend to like overcomplicate it when actually it can be quite simple.
Out of curiosity, have you ever had any lost in translation moment? Something that you were not sure because it was a new culture or different language and something lost in translation? You're both smiling, but I don't know who have an answer.
Sivan, you want to go first? Because
I
I'm
can
thinking.
take, yeah, sure. So for me, I mean, quite a relevant question because obviously, and although the majority of the population speak English, their language is Chichewa. And while I'm learning to speak Chichewa, it's a struggle. And because James is my partner, most of James's friends, they don't speak very good English, so they have to speak in Chichewa around me. So it happens a lot that I get lost in translation, but not just when it comes to communication, but also a lot of cultural things are very, very different here. And I might do something that comes across as, I don't know about rude, but maybe sometimes rude, even though I don't mean it to be, because it's just the way that the culture here is completely different with the way that you speak or the way that you dress or the way that you even like here, most people, you don't even refer to them by their first name. You have to usually refer to them, even with friends, they refer to them by their last names. And I didn't really know that. So even things like that, it just takes some getting used to.
So that's interesting. Yeah.
That's really interesting about the last name. I would not
Yeah.
have pegged. I know in Nigeria we tend to say uncle and auntie a lot, even to
They
people
do
that
that
are
here
not,
too.
yeah, not related to you at all. So just out of respect. But I would say for me, so it was really interesting when I got to Turkey for the first time because one of my routines when I travel is to go to the supermarket and buy food, grocery, and cook at home. So I had gone to the supermarket and I saw this drink and it looked like milk. And, and I was like, oh, this is milk. I'm just going to get it for my coffee. And I got some milk and went back home and I put it in my coffee and I tasted it. And I was like, it tastes salty. Why does it taste salty? And I looked at the bottle, of course, used my Google Translate to see what it actually was in it. And I
Yeah.
realized it was iron. And iron is basically like a yogurt, and not milk. And so it was just one of those funny moments where it's like, oh, I
Yeah.
put yogurt in my coffee. Very perfect. But but the moment I started like obviously getting to know more people in the community there and talking to more people, like you learn some of these things and it's like, okay, when I
Yes.
go to the store, this is what I should look for, which is why it's so helpful to connect with people in the community as opposed to just like staying by yourself or trying to figure out
Yeah.
everything by yourself. So definitely a lesson for me there, but it was just one of those funny moments. So
Oh, yeah, that can happen. But I guess those experiences are the ones that you take with you and just remember and laugh about them, the fun experiences. So let's get back to our questions. You both share and create awareness around things like sustainable, regenerative, slow travel. What's a question you get the most from people who are just starting to learn about this, and maybe from family or friends also? What's
For me, I would say an interesting conversation I've been having, and I feel like it's recurring, is what's wrong with cruises? Like everyone says, why is a cruise still unsustainable?
Mm,
And I will just go ahead and throw the answer that I typically give, which is it's all about the nuance, right? It's
mm,
not about shaming people. Yes, they do want to go on a cruise, they want to see places, but it's like, what is the impact of this kind of travel? Because
mm,
cruises, especially large ship cruises, they're not really designed for deep engagement with a place. They're more so designed where large numbers of people come to a place for a short amount of time, and they're
mm.
experience a very, very shallow perception of the destination and not necessarily engaging deeply with the community. So it's a lot of times money also stays within the cruise ecosystem. It doesn't go to the destination as well, which is a huge problem we see with economic leakage and over tourism
Mm.
too, because a lot of people come off the ship and they end up just like coming down en masse on this in this location or destination,
Yeah,
and so that creates its own problem too, because you have too many people on the infrastructure and the communities, and it's just chaos a
yeah,
lot. So it's not about saying, oh, don't do this or don't do that. It's more so understanding what experience am I actually looking for myself, and also what impact does it have? Like who benefits from this experience that I'm going to be having? At what cost does it come, basically? So once you start asking questions like that, I think it does definitely change the
mhm,
way that you travel and the choices that you make along the way.
So for me, I think it's more like comments that I get. So whenever I post about sustainable travel, people always talk about, oh, but you fly. Or another one is that they say to me, oh, but
mm,
train travel is so expensive. And I'm like, yes, you're right for both of these things. But I think a lot of people don't realize that sustainable travel isn't just about the environmental impact, it's also the social and economical, I think, aspects that people tend to miss. And even if you do fly, because unfortunately that is sometimes the most accessible way to travel for some people who are obviously have more money, but obviously when you have a short amount of time because you have like only a small amount of days that you have for your time off. So I get why people
yeah,
feel have to fly sometimes. So I just tried to tell them that when you actually get to the destination, you can still travel in a sustainable way by, for example, choosing to stay at like locally owned businesses, homestays, guest houses, eating local food. And then in terms of the environmental thing, you can also take public transport when you're there. What I do, for example, is I don't take any internal flights within a country. I try to travel by public transport. I carry a water bottle that has a filter so that I can drink tap water. I mean, it doesn't have to be just the way that you get to the place. It can also be once you actually get there, you can still travel sustainably. There's so many different things you can do, and everyone should do the things that are more that are easier for them and accessible to them because nobody's perfect.
yeah, true. I have asked you both so many questions about this that I don't have one question. I mean, I think that once you start like learning something about these topics, you just get more curious, and just questions just keep coming to you, and you just want to understand how everything connects. Right? Like to me, it's kind of like that. So, uh, this question over time, have you noticed that there's this change in travelers becoming more open, maybe, or like just what I said, more curious about these terms, about these things, or not really?
I would say I see a shift, but it's interesting depending on the region where you're traveling. So, having traveled now more extensively within like Europe and a little bit of Asia, like I've noticed that people are having more open conversations and asking more questions around sustainable travel or regenerative travel, but they're not using those terms, of course. They're using more terms like, oh, how can I support a local business? Or how can I ditch the
Yeah.
corporation, the large corporations that are taking from people? And so they're having conversations around it, not necessarily with the
True.
terms, but at least it's opening the door to questions. However, in America here, traveling within the country, I don't see that as much, and I'm not sure why that's the case, but it's not something that is in a lot of conversations. But the interesting thing that I also want to kind of tag on here is the gap you see between the intention versus the action.
Yeah.
Like we're having
True.
more questions about it, we're having more people ask about it. However, there's still that little disconnect where it's like the conversations are happening, but they're not always translated into action as to what choices that people make. However, having said that, it is still good that the conversations are happening because that's where awareness starts. You can't
True.
you can't make a change if there's no awareness as to what the problem is. So the fact that more travelers are actually talking about it and asking questions about it is a step in the right
Yeah.
direction because that's how we're going to get to the point where we make it the norm as opposed to something exclusive.
True. Yes, I agree. I love that. Sivan?
So I would say, I think I read somewhere a stat that said that, I don't know if it was 70%, but it was quite a high number of people now that they think about sustainability before now making their decision on where to travel, or that it's important for them for
That's
where
good.
they stay, for accommodation, for example. So I do think
Yeah.
there's definitely a lot of interest. And I've also noticed a lot more accounts popping up lately about responsible and sustainable travel. So I do think that the interest is there. But I do think that it's still very early stages. And again, that I don't think for maybe a majority of people that there is a full understanding of what sustainable travel actually is. And so I think that that education and awareness part is extremely important to then, as Sarah was saying, make it more into the norm rather than just the trend that we're seeing now, so that people can actually understand why it's important and the reason behind it.
Yeah. Yes, true. I didn't know about that number that you just mentioned at the
I
beginning.
think I saw it, but don't quote me for that. But I read
Yeah,
it
I think
somewhere
it
that
was
there is
like
it is
50 to 70% or something. They keep bringing out like new stats as well. So
Well, that's great. Like I didn't know that's at least people being curious. I think that it's a huge step. It's a great start. Everything starts with curiosity, I think so. That's
mm.
that's good.
Yeah, I think the only
Um,
issue is then it leads to more greenwashing, unfortunately. That I think that's coming up a lot more.
more what? Yeah, here.
Greenwashing, she was saying. I think she's
Oh,
frozen here.
yeah,
But
she
yeah.
froze.
I would just like tag off that definitely more of the greenwashing with the businesses, because that's the other side when marketing becomes all about, oh, like everybody knows the trend is going on. So
Mm.
so they're like, let's jump on this trend and let's actually say we're sustainable when we're not actually sustainable. And that's a huge problem. Sivan, sorry, you got cut off there. You
Yeah, but
can
I heard you finish what I wanted to say, so you did perfectly. No worries.
okay.
Right. Well, yeah, yeah. Well, but I guess that what you said, like keep the conversations going, and eventually, like like more people understanding or listening these topics, and like understanding deeply the concept. So the greenwashing, like it's not going to be also a thing when you know what. I don't know, like healthy food. When you learn what healthy food is, you can't just, get anyone to tell you what healthy food is. You already know. So I guess that it's just going to take some time.
Yeah, and I think it's
Um,
helpful to just tag on there. That's why it's so nice to do your own research as well. So when you do your own research, then you
yeah,
avoid companies that are trying to greenwash.
yeah, true. This one is just to learn more about both of you. So because Sivan just moved, she's starting a very new life, and Sarah has been nomading and staying for long periods of time in new places. What's one thing that brings you comfort while you are adapting to a new place? Maybe a food, or maybe a habit, something that brings you some comfort when you're adapting.
Hmm.
I would say community
I
for
guess
me.
for
But
me,
go ahead, Sivan. Sorry.
no, it's okay. If I cut out, I'm sorry because the network is really bad again.
Mhm.
I was just saying for me is I have weekly calls with my family. We do like a group chat, and I think to me being connected with my family and friends abroad, I think that really helps me a lot, to be honest.
That's nice. That's very
It's
nice.
along the same vein, but for me, I would say like finding a community in that space where I'm going to, because it makes my life so much easier. And it's nice now that there's so many ways to do this, whether it's jump in on a Facebook community of like locals and expats within that country that you're going to, and then getting to connect with them. In
Yeah,
Izmir, where I was for about 2 months in Turkey, it was very beautiful because I got to, of course, know my host, but also my host introduced me to like a community of travelers, but also local people. And so it
yeah,
was nice to connect with them on the weekends, do stuff, and meet with them one on one, like members of the community, and go like to just the market or go walk
yeah,
around the sea or whatever it was. But definitely finding that community brings a lot of comfort because you always have tons and tons of questions as a traveler. And so
yeah,
having people that actually leave there being able to answer those questions are super, super helpful for me at least.
yeah. That's
Well,
nice.
actually, Sarah, it was you that introduced me to host a sister. I think I saw it on your
Oh,
account once,
yes.
and actually, when I went to Egypt, I didn't know about it until I saw on your account. So then I met some women in Egypt through host a sister, and it was honestly really great. So I think that's a really great community as well to help with things like that, especially as a solo female traveler, even for
Exactly.
safety reasons and things like that. It's really
Mhm.
helpful.
Yeah, that's a good call because call out shout out to Host a Sister because they are a great community. It's like specifically for women as well. So it's super. I've met so many people through them, basically in every country that
Nice.
I've gone to so far. So yes, definitely check them out. They're highly recommended.
That's so nice. I never heard about them. Hosted sister?
Host a Sister.
Host a
Hosted,
sister.
hosted.
Yeah. Mhm.
Nice. Nice. And
It's a
going in this same,
Facebook group, and it's free.
oh, Facebook. Okay.
Mhm.
I'm not that active on Facebook, but I need to go back there. Going on this same line. So from these experiences, again, like moving to this new continent and having this new experience of being a nomad or having a nomadic life, what have been what have these new experiences have shown you, maybe challenge in you or reinforce of you, like maybe a concept, a belief, or maybe that you had with you in,
For me, it's just reinforced that travel is not, it's something that you co-create with the community and the place that you're in. It's not necessarily about coming with a perfect itinerary and, having everything perfectly planned when you get there. It's leaving space for those things that are unexpected, which is the little moments that you remember the most. And I would just give
yeah.
an example here. I went to Athens, Greece, and I was just passing through. I wasn't staying there. However, I wanted to meet up with a former client, just kind of grab a meal, but he surprised me by taking me to this university where students were learning traditional Greek dance. And so I got to join the circle of like 100 people. I don't know how many people were there, and actually do the dance as well. And even though I was like tripping over my foot,
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun, and that was like the best moment of the stay that I had in Athens. And so it was more than just, sightseeing or the must-dos that everyone says. It was more so connecting with those people. And but all of that happened because I wasn't going in there with like my perfect itinerary of what I was going to do. It was more
Yeah.
like being space for those little moments. And I think that that's something that's super, super crucial. It just makes the trip worth remembering, but also about trust in the process, that it's not always
That's
going
good.
to be 100% perfect, but trust in the process, trust in the place, trust in the people. And I think that definitely adds so much more than it takes away from the trip.
I love that. Yes, so true. I love that. Sivan?
Um, so for me, it's all about when you go to a certain place and you start, I guess, spending more time there. It's also like leaving all your perceptions and what you, I don't know, what you think is right or what you're used to or the way that you live life back at home. I think you kind of have to let go of that, because I think a lot of people go in thinking that their way of life or the way that it's done in their home is the right way, when that's really not the case. And honestly, I've always thought that I'm very aware of my privilege, but even since being here, I've had to really check my privilege quite a few times, because for example, with James, like I'd get annoyed with him that he would be getting like phone calls all the time. And I was like, why can't you just like message these people? And he's like, oh, people here don't have smartphones. And it's just like, even like such like a silly small thing like that I didn't even think about. So like I've had to just completely let go of everything that I'm even just used to. And I don't mean that in like a, I don't know how to say, not like a bad way, but like for myself, it's just I really have to like check my privilege a lot. And it's like quite a, like something you really have to experience and to like encounter to really realize just how much privilege we have. So I think that was really humbling to be honest. But yeah, so I've had to just like change my way of thinking as well, because everything here, a lot of things, not everything, but a lot of things here are very different. So I think just leaving your perceptions behind and coming in with like an open mind and being willing to learn from, especially from the people who live here. So James has been helping me a lot, of course, with explaining to me like the cultural norms and things like that. So I think learning is something that is extremely important, and to learn not just from learning by reading online, but also learning from the people who actually live here.
Yeah, that's so interesting. You know how they say that when we're looking for answers or solutions to something, to a topic that matters, we should start by asking ourselves bigger questions. What's one big question for you today?
So for me, I would say, how can we avoid turning people's homes into this photo backdrop and making sure that whatever we do actually is supporting these places that we love and places that we want to go to, because it's not just a destination, it's a community, it's people's home, it's people's livelihoods. So for me, I know that I'm still thinking about it because there is this deep desire when you travel to, take lots of photos, enjoy it, leave the expectation of the normal way you would interact at home, and not think about it on the trip. And for me, I'm constantly asking myself and constantly questioning myself, how can I make sure that I'm not necessarily doing that? Yes, I want to have a good time and I want to have fun, but at the same time, this is someone else's home. And I do want to make sure that I'm being aware and cognizant of that. And so it's just constantly questioning myself and making sure that whatever I'm doing is not turning somebody else's home into just a photo backdrop.
That's a big question. Yes, I think we can relate to that. Yes.
So mine is actually very similar. Mine is about asking yourself why you want to travel to where you're traveling to. So for me, intention is super important. Like, do I only want to go there because I've seen it on Instagram and I want to take the same photo that everyone's taken? Or am I genuinely interested by the culture, by a certain place that I've wanted to visit for a long time? Or even more than that, I guess more importantly than that, for example, personally, I know a lot of people would. I personally would never travel to Antarctica, just because I cannot find a sustainable way to do so. And I feel like me being there would be more of a hindrance and cause more damage than good. So the way that I think about things in my head is, can I go there and travel in a way that sustainably and does not harm the community, does not harm, obviously harming the planet is a more difficult one, because no matter what you do in some way, it can be negative. But if I see that the negatives outweigh the benefits, then I will decide not to go to that place. And that's a very personal decision and a very personal choice. But to me, I think asking why you want to go somewhere is an extremely important part of travel.
Okay. Yes. Love those questions. And I have just one question left, and it's actually because I like kind of co-create this conversation. So I was wondering, what's one question that you would ask to each other?
Good one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I'm gonna have to think about that.
I have my coffee. No worries.
I feel like a lot of the questions.
I think that we're very similar in a lot of ways, at least in the way that we travel. So
I think a lot of the questions that I would have had, like you already answer them in your content, like homestays. I think I had just even asked you a question the other day about you were talking about like washing and specific wash bags that you travel with. So I feel like a lot of the questions I already have answers to from your content, but it's not a cop out. I just can't think of any like specific one right now.
I guess my question is, where is a place you really want to go to, and why?
Ooh, that's a good one because I've been thinking about this a little bit. So, I do want to go to Senegambia, so West Africa, Senegal, and Gambia, because Gambia is within Africa, within Senegal. But I do want to go there because part of my family is from the Gambia, actually. And I have never actually really traveled within Africa besides Nigeria, which is where I come from, which is quite sad because I do want to learn more about the culture there, within the Gambia, within Senegal, and just learn more about my own heritage personally. So it's something that I've been talking about with my family, going back to the Gambia and also visiting Senegal while we're there and just learning more about that heritage because we didn't really grow up learning or with that culture embedded into our daily lives. So that's why. But I can definitely throw the question back to you because I am now curious as well where you would like to go.
I love your answer because I really want to go to Senegal and Gambia too. I've actually been seeing a lot more about it recently, people traveling there. But my answer is very similar to yours, and it's Tunisia. So my mom is originally from Tunisia, and actually most of my family is, but I've never actually been there myself because I grew up in Europe. I'm a third culture kid. And so it's somewhere that I've been really wanting to go back to just to like explore my roots. And like you said, whereas we grew up very much in like a European household, like the food and the culture was still very much Tunisian. So, and for me, traveling around so much and having lived in 5 countries, I don't really have anywhere that feels like home. And so I just feel like I need to go back to somewhere. It's kind of like calling me. So it's somewhere that I definitely need to go to. And hopefully this year, seeing as I'm actually in the right continent for now. So fingers crossed, I'll be able to make that happen.
Nice. Well, maybe you should let me know when you're going because I would love to visit Tunisia as well. So
sure,
maybe we can go together.
I'm always looking for travel partners.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay, so that was it. It went by so fast.
It did.
Is there anything that you like to share? Maybe in any project, something coming up, things you are working on? Just.
Well, I would like to hold myself accountable, so it would be good to do this here. I've been meaning to start a blog, and I even bought like a domain like 3 months ago, and I've still not started. So I'm holding myself accountable and saying that I'm going to start a travel blog because it's something I've been wanting to do for a very long time. So watch this space, and fingers crossed I will manage to do it. Having all this freedom, I'm still getting used to. I'm very much a person that was used to having a 9 to 5 all the time. So I'm still getting used to not having as much of a routine. Yeah. So I really need to push myself, motivate myself, but this is just to hold myself accountable.
I love it.
Well, we'll follow up with you, Sivan, to make sure that you start at the blog.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Oh, Sivan disappeared.
Yeah. No, thank you for having us, Vil. It was definitely a pleasure.